Hello and welcome everyone back to another Tea with Mel series today. And I want to welcome anyone who's new to the series. Welcome to our Tea with Mel series. So I am the founder and creator of Endo Empowered, and I run this series to really help women specifically with endometriosis. So it's a condition that affects 1 in 10 women, and there is just so little support around how you can better manage this condition. So I really wanted to share because of my own experience. I suffered with endometriosis for 15 years, and I went through 7 surgeries and tried all the conventional approaches that were recommended to me. And unfortunately, none of them actually made me feel any better. So I really want to create this to support women, to be there for you, and to give you as much information and insight that I just didn't have. I felt very much alone in my journey, and whether it was conventional or whether it was natural methods, I still felt very alone. And so I'm glad that, the world has opened up since then. There's a lot more opportunity. There's a lot more ways that we can support each other through social networks and online networks. And that is part of why I create this. So if you're here with me today, feel free to use the comments. I'm trying out this new software today, so really want to check in with you guys, see how you're finding it, if you enjoy using, if you want to be part of this and my journey with trying these new things. So feel free to share in the comments below, and then I will be happy to also answer any questions. So today I really wanted to talk about, I guess, teas on a broader scale. So I was kind of looking at all my teas this morning and kind of deciding what tea am I going to make for you guys and what can I talk about. And one of the things I guess that I've never touched on and something that we often dismiss is the power of the culinary herbs that many of us might have in the garden, or we might use within our cooking, but these are actually phenomenal teas. So one in particular, unfortunately, we had a bit of a storm, so mine didn't didn't do so well, is rosemary. So rosemary is a fantastic herb for the liver, and it also helps with your brain function and things like that. So it's actually really easy to make a tea out of rosemary. You literally just take a snippet of rosemary and put it in boiling water. And it offers incredible health benefits in terms of your liver health. And the reason the liver is important, particularly with endometriosis, is because there is a component of high toxicity in the body or poor liver function, which could be termed as liver stagnation. So the liver is just struggling to work. And this can be because there's too many toxins. It can be because there's too many emotions. So often feelings of anger can have an impact on the liver. But also there is a hormone component here. So if you have been on synthetic hormones, as I have been, if there is digestive issues, which there often are with endo, that will have an impact on your liver health. All those synthetic hormones do have an impact on your liver health, which thereby has the sort of downward impact on how well your body can process toxins, get rid of toxins, and therefore that contributes as a whole to how well you can support the body with endometriosis. So I hope that makes sense. Feel free to share in the comments if you have any questions or any insights on that. All right, so getting to our topic of today, what are my top 5 diet principles? So I've made some cute little slides for you guys today just to share with you, because I know last week I got a little bit sidetracked with some of my tips. So I thought I'd make it easier for myself. So diet is something that I think a lot of women really struggle with, they hear, okay, diet can really help me, but now I've got one friend who's saying I should have vegan, one who's saying I should have keto, or they read something online and, there's all this advice around the Indo diet and you should have this and you should avoid this. And it just gets really, really overwhelming really, really quickly. And oftentimes that information contradicts each other. So one person will say, you should completely avoid something. And then another person said, but you need that something. And then we're just stuck in this place of confusion. And so inevitably we do one of two things. We avoid to the hilt. So we just avoid pretty much everything and we're barely eating, or we just give up and just eat how we normally eat. And so I really want to kind of shift your focus on this today. The key way to really look at your diet is how nourishing is that diet. So I have seen people who go on these highly restrictive diets and they've cut out a heap of things. But what's happening in that process is they're not nourishing the body fully. They're not getting enough nutrients. They're not getting enough of the right minerals or vitamins that the body really needs. And let's not go into buying a whole lot of supplements, because that is not the solution here. Those are synthetic. So really, I don't want you guys to use that as a crutch. Your diet is really the foundation of really providing for the body. And it needs to be as close to nature as your body is, so that your body recognizes what you're giving it so it can absorb it and process it and use it. So when you're looking at your diet, I want you to really think about, how nourishing is this for my body? Am I really providing everything that my body needs to feel well? Because here's the thing. You can go on a paleo diet. You can go on a vegan diet. You can go on a whatever label you want to give a diet. At the end of the day, there are choices within that diet that can be nourishing, and there are choices which are not so good for your body. So though the label of vegan or vegetarian or whatever may sound good, but are you truly nourishing? Are you really providing for your body? Because it's become trendy to fall within these diet brackets. But when you actually look at the individual foods people are eating, they're not truly nourishing. They're not really supportive for your body to feel well. I'll give you an example. I have clients who are convinced that the vegan diet is the best diet to be healthy, but then they're lacking in B12, thiamine, some key nutrients that the body needs to have the liver function well, to have your body being able to produce proteins. But they're like, yeah, but I'm eating vegan. Okay, and what are you eating within that diet? Oh, I'm having vegan sausages. What's in those vegan sausages? What is that made of? And how nourishing is that truly for your body? A lot of the time, these foods have been, there's all sorts of things that they've put back in because they're actually not nutritive. They're not actually giving your body anything. They are so processed that there's nothing left in terms of what you're actually eating. And guess what? All that stuff that you're putting in that's just feeling filling is not actually giving your body anything. And so I really want to shift this idea, and I really want you to just look at it seriously from a nourishment point of view. Not because it's trendy and it's currently the marketing, because let's be honest, all these things are, there's a marketing component to this. It's cool to be this or had this diet, and currently that's all keto and everyone's promoting keto. And then next year it'll be some other diet. because at some point in history, somebody decided that following a specific diet was going to get you some kind of result. And so all these people just package up all these different diet types because it's much easier to market that. It's much harder to market something where I'm just saying, just focus on nourishment, focus on how do you get the most nutrients out of your diet. And that should be your goal. So I know this is going to press some buttons for some people, and I'd love to hear your comments. If you agree, you disagree, you have questions, feel free to share those. Your body needs certain minerals, certain vitamins to function well. These are the building blocks. These are what I call the tools that your body uses to make a bunch of things happen. So I use a windmill example. So if you imagine a windmill with a bunch of spokes, and each spoke is a mineral, vitamin, phytonutrient, etc. There's a whole lot of things your body needs, and your body's getting all of those. That windmill will run really, really smoothly and really, really well. But if you're missing a couple of spokes, your body will still run. It'll still run around, but it's not going to get that same level of function. Your energy will be lower. You'll probably get illnesses. You'll probably not feel so well. You might, feel tired, get headaches, get period pain, develop imbalances, which ultimately what is happening with endometriosis. So does that make sense to you guys? Feel free to share your comments. I would love to hear from you in terms of where you're at in terms of these ideas, because I know some of this is really pressing buttons for some people. So just shift your focus to how do I nourish my body? What foods are truly nourishing for my body? And this does require a little bit of insight in terms of learning about, nutrition. What is nutrition really? What is really the key minerals and nutrients that your body needs, and how do you provide those for your body? Okay, so that is the biggest question. Is it truly nourishing your body? Are you really giving your body everything it needs? And be hesitant when people try and categorize diets into specific things and cut out a bunch of things, because there's a reason why we have all of those different things. Just because somebody somewhere said meat is bad and now we don't eat any meat. Somebody said, oh, all carbs are bad, they make you fat, so we cut out all carbs. Why does it have to be so extreme? Why can't we acknowledge, okay, maybe having that much meat every single day, 3 times a day is not ideal. Let's minimize it, but we're still getting the nourishment we might need from meat or animal products. Why do we have to go to such extremes? And I know there's also an ethical component here for some people. Where are we looking at that in terms of the ethical side of things? And that's also questionable. Are you truly saving animals by eating vegan? Now, I'm going to press some buttons here, but are you? Because somewhere along the line, some animal had to die for you to have that food. And if you're upfront and honest about that, you'll recognize that. Plants don't grow in a vacuum. Especially if you have a huge, essentially a buffet of, say, lettuce on a field, you're going to attract insects, you're going to attract bugs. And there's things that have to happen. Otherwise, the bugs are going to eat those, not the humans. So, really thinking about sort of that in terms of a bigger scale, and also in terms of your health and how much that's going to impact your health. Okay, so that is the first point. And feel free to share any thoughts on that, any questions on that. I want to hear from you. If you disagree with me, it's totally fine. We can have an open discussion. I want to support you to feel better. And if diet is something that's causing you stress, if diet is something that you feel really restricted on, if diet is something that you feel confused about, tell me what those things are, because I know that you can shift your pain levels and your symptoms with endometriosis by shifting your diet. I know that is a huge portion. It is the platform, the groundwork of how you actually get your body to feeling well. And if there's components within that are scary to you, or you feel overwhelmed, or you don't know where to start, or you don't know what to eat, let me know what those are so that I can help you through that. Because if I don't know where you're struggling, then I can't help you with that. So really, guys, tell me where you're at, and then I can help you with these things. All right. So next up is a key principle when it comes to what you're eating. And I see this quite often. There's kind of this focus on my food is something that's just something I need to do. I'm hungry, I'm going to eat. It's often we are not even conscious. 80% of the time, women are shoveling down food while they're at their desk, or they're on their phone, kind of eating like this, or they're doing 5 other things while eating. You are not conscious of what you're eating. And there's a whole lot of things that are happening in that process. So when you're not conscious of what you're eating, you're actually not stimulating the digestive juices in your stomach. Now, this is kind of like a production line. So if you imagine a production line, you're trying to build a car, right? And down the production line comes the first part of the car. And all the people that are supposed to be working on that have gone off and they're doing other things. And suddenly this car arrives and they're like, oh, bugger, we've actually got to do something with this. And so they kind of rush in and try and do it as quickly as they can. But of course, the production line keeps going. So it's moving along the trolley. And guess what? They're not going to actually get to process and do that stuff properly. And it's kind of the same thing when you eat something. So if you eat something in a rush and you're not fully mindful of what you're eating and you're kind of rushing around, you're shoveling food down into your stomach, and your stomach's not actually awake. It's not actually going, oh, there's food ready for me. Suddenly it's like, oh, there's food. I have to process this. So it tries to break it down as best it can with that minimal notice and the sort of consciousness that comes with that. But it's going to move it along because there's a production line that needs to happen. And so often women will say to me, but my digestion's not good and I don't feel well when I eat, and I get a lot of gas and bloating, and I just feel really icky in my stomach, and I feel really full, but I don't feel like I'm actually processing my food. It's because you haven't stimulated that initial process that needs to happen when you digest food. And it's because you're doing 5 other things and you're not actually telling your brain, hey, food's about to come, your stomach, hey, come on, let's start and get ready for this. And the way to do that is unfortunately not driving through a drive-through and buying food out of a counter. It's not going to a cafe and just buying the first thing that you see. It's being conscious, it's being mindful of your food and being in tune with your food. And the way to do that is to prepare your food, is to make your food, is to make yourself salivate. That's the key thing here. We want to salivate. We want to get excited about what we're about to eat. And the way to do that is to think about what you're about to eat. Get excited about what you eat. I strongly believe there's a reason why back in the day we used to all sit at the table, and then all the food would come out and everyone could see the food, and it would be like, oh, wow, look at all the food. And you'd prepare the food with your mum, and it was like this whole event. And we'd sit down and everyone would wait, and then there would be a prayer normally. I know not all of us are religious, but if you think about the concept of this, we'd sit down and we'd be grateful for our food. There is a time delay there. There is a waiting, there's an anticipation, there's an excitement that comes with that process. And in that process, you're creating those digestive juices. You're creating excitement around what you're about to eat. So when you then put the food in your mouth and you're chewing it and you put it into the stomach, it's all ready to go. It's excited about that. It's going to process that. It's going to digest that properly. And then as it goes through the production line, everything's going to get absorbed better. You're actually going to get the nutrients from your food. And then down goes the bloating, down goes all those symptoms of digestive issue will be lowered simply by being conscious about the process of eating. There's actually a movement called, I think it's the slow food diet. It's another kind of marketing thing, but ultimately it's about shifting to eating slowly, being mindful of our food, really being conscious of our food. So tell me what you think about this. Where are your thoughts at with this? Would love to hear from you. I have this very cool new software, so I really want to see how it works. So if you guys want to share any thoughts on this, what is your current eating habit like? What do you currently do in terms of your eating? Are you just kind of shoveling food in? What is your experience with food? Do you feel time pressured? Do you feel like you have got all those digestive issues going on? You feel bloated and like you're not really digesting your food? And have you personally made a connection here with that? Okay, well, all right. So let's move on to the next principle, and that is, are you listening? Okay, so when it comes to diet, there isn't a thing of this diet's going to solve everyone's issue. I wish it was, because that would be really easy then. If everyone ate a certain way, then we would all feel better and everything would be fantastic. But there are differences and different needs and different personalities and different, lifestyles and stresses and physical exercise. And we all lead quite different lives, and we're in different stages of our lives in terms of our age and where our hormones are at and all sorts of things. So there isn't a diet that fits everybody. And so arguing about diet is actually kind of silly, because we are all different. So the question becomes, if you are eating consciously and you're mindful of what you're eating, what actually happens is you become more in tune with your body and how your body feels when you eat certain things. And so this is really the principle of, are you listening? Are you listening to how your body feels when you eat certain foods? And it's kind of looking at, okay, when I eat this kind of food, how do I feel? And recognizing the connection between those two things. When we eat in a rush and we're, not focused on our food and it's not a priority, we often don't listen to how our bodies feel. We might just feel this general feeling of unwellness, but we don't necessarily associate it with a particular food or a particular style of eating or anything like that. So when you slow down and you become mindful, you are able to listen to how your body actually feels and how you feel when you eat a certain food. The other key thing that happens is you actually become more aware of how something truly tastes. So there was a story of a guy who was totally addicted to McDonald's. And this nutritionist said to him, look, what I want you to do is, I'm not going to tell you to not eat McDonald's. All I want you to do is, when you have that McDonald's, I want you to sit in a calm space, no other distractions. I want you to take that McDonald's burger and I want you to just imagine every single flavor that's coming into your mouth. I want you to be fully engrossed in what you're eating, the texture, the tastes, everything. I just want you to imagine that you have to describe it to me later. And I want you to really, really think about the experience of eating that burger, because you're telling me that you're so engrossed in this experience. So anyways, he sent the guy off and he did this. And he did this for about a week. And he came back to him and he said, look, I actually realized I don't actually like McDonald's burgers. And the guy's, well, what are you talking about? He said, I actually don't like the taste. like when I actually connected truly to what I was eating and the sensations in my mouth and the textures and the tastes and everything, I really didn't like. And I didn't like how it made me feel after I ate that. And that is why my first step, the principle number 2, is so key. Because when you are really in tune with what you're eating and you're really mindful, you then learn to listen. And you learn to listen to your body's reaction to a particular food. So for me, for instance, always had this addiction to chocolate, always wanted chocolate. And it wasn't that I was particularly addicted to chocolate. It was the dopamine hit or the sugar rush from the chocolate that I was addicted to. But actually, when I thought about, and actually sat present with the chocolate and ate it to that degree and thought about how it made me feel, it didn't fill me up. It didn't give me that sensation that I wanted to feel. And so every time you eat a food, every time you have a dish, I want you to really tune inward and think about, how do you feel? How does it make you feel when you eat that? And there is no diet that can give you that specific thing. You will feel good or you will feel bad. And then you will know what foods you want to be eating and what foods you want to be avoiding. It'll become really, really clear to you and really, really easy to you over time. It's not something that's, instant, because we need to learn, because we're so conditioned into this rushing kind of style of eating that we don't take the time to actually listen and really tune into the body and really acknowledge where the body is at. So feel free to share your thoughts on that. If you have any thoughts on that, let me know if that makes sense to you guys, if you've experienced that yourself, if you've felt a difference in certain foods, if you've noticed that there's certain foods that trigger a reaction in your body, if it's really obvious or if it's not obvious. Like if you're confused by this statement, feel free to share that as well. Okay. Next, principle number 4 is to shift your focus. Okay. So we touched on this at the beginning of this live, but I really want to bring this home. Your food, what you eat on a daily basis, is your fuel. It's what keeps your body going. It's what keeps your mind healthy. It's what keeps your whole system running. And yet we put it aside and it's not important. I often hear people say, yes, but eating healthy takes so much time and it costs more money and it's so much commitment. But are you not worth it? Or is your health, your body, your system not worth it? Do you not care about the fuel that you're putting into your body? Is that not a priority to you? Because we can't expect to feel well if we put rubbish fuel into the body. And so the focus needs to shift. The focus needs to shift towards, how do I make time? How do I find a way to eat nourishing foods that support my body? How do I become more present with my food? Because this is a priority. It is something that's important to me because I want to feel well. And I need to shift my focus towards what's really nourishing and giving for my body, rather than just filling a hole. Oh, I'm hungry. I'm just going to grab some toast, whack some peanut butter on, and I'm good to go. Yes, we can do that. But then over time, are we really supporting our body? Are we really supporting nourishing the body? There is something in nutrition called cell saturation. And that's really the goal that you want to get to. Essentially, it means your cells are saturated with all the nourishment that they can get. Imagine this beautiful, plump cell, just full of all this goodness. Imagine how good you would feel in your body if you achieve that. And there is no set diet that's going to give you that. There is no set anything that's going to give you that. It's about shifting your focus towards, how do I really support nourishing my body? So first step is shift your focus towards nourishment. Second step is really be conscious of what you're eating so you can process that food properly. And within that, your focus becomes you and nourishing your body and providing that fuel for your body and really taking that time, making it a priority. Because at the end of the day, you are a priority. And perhaps that is the bigger question. Why are we putting aside our eating time? Why are we rushing through lunch? Why is it like we get up in the morning and we only give ourselves 15 minutes to have breakfast and rush out the door? Where is that prioritization? Why do we put food as something that's fairly low on the list? And why don't we consider that our diet is something that's quite critical to feeling well? And unfortunately, I think a lot of it is to do with the marketing in terms of our foods and our suppliers of food. Take away everything and, oh, it's ready in 5 minutes. Just line up in a queue and grab your burger and you're good to go. Oh, when you see ads for supermarkets, all about price. It's all got to be cheaper, cheaper, cheaper. And where's the quality there? In terms of how you feel, in terms of valuing food, how do we value food? If all we're looking at is price, what about the nourishment level of that food? Yes, you can buy a cheap apple, but how much is actually in there in terms of nourishing your body? And so I actually wish they would have like a value scale. This apple contains all these nutrients, so it should be priced at this. And this apple only contains this many nutrients, so it should only be priced at this. Because here we are spending trillions on supplements, trying to pump up the body with, oh, I have to take a multi and I've got to take this mineral and that mineral. And we're spending all this money on these synthetic things that half the time you're just literally flushing down the toilet. Some of them can actually be toxic because your body doesn't need it in those quantities. And yet we have the sources from our food, but we're choosing to take a supplement instead. And we're spending all that money on supplements, but we're not shifting towards, well, how do I actually get this from my food and choosing nourishing foods? And yes, those nourishing foods might be more expensive. They're still cheaper than a supplement. And guess what? You'll probably absorb that more because it's something your body recognizes. It's made in nature, your body's nature. It's going to go, yay, I know what that is. I'm going to eat that. I'm going to feel good. Supplements, you take that in, your digestive system ain't working because you're not conscious, you're not mindful of your food. There's a whole lot of inflammation going on in the gut. Guess where that's going? It ain't going into your body. It ain't getting absorbed. And there are a lot of supplements where there has been a toxic reaction. There is too much of it. And there's a real danger there. And I see this quite often where women think, oh, I'll just take more because then I'm doing a good thing. More must be better. It's not the case. There is a real danger there. And those things can be synthetic. There's a really cool documentary called Vitamania. I think it's on Neon from memory, or it could be, it's on Curiosity Stream, which is this really cool channel. They have all these documentaries. If you guys haven't seen it, it's really cool. And there's this show, and the guy talks about kind of some real dangers of people taking these supplements and really the high toxicity that can exist in taking these in high doses. If your liver is struggling, A, D, E, and K, they're all fat soluble. Now, if you're not able to process that, those in high doses can be really dangerous. Particularly vitamin D, I've noticed that a lot of women with Endo are taking vitamin D. Now, if you don't live in a country where there is not enough sun exposure, you may not be needing that. There is so much marketing and so much information about selling us these supplements. And yet we don't even check our levels. We don't actually know where we're at, and yet we're just taking these things. We have no idea what's in them. They're not regulated. So really be mindful of that. When you take a food in, your body can regulate that. Your body knows what that is, and it can go, okay, I've got enough of this. I don't need this. I can flush this out. It's much easier for your body to process that. But when something is synthetic, we don't really know how that reacts. And oftentimes, one of the things that I always find so cool with nature is we'll see these correlations that they make later. They'll go, oh, if you want to take vitamin D, you need to take it with calcium. And you're like, okay, but we haven't been doing that for how many years? And then they figure this out and they're like, oh, that's why we'll now make a supplement that has both. But in nature, things are already packaged together because the body knows, it's like nature knows what goes together and how the body absorbs things. There's chemicals that know how to break that down. So, I think there's a certain arrogance that comes with these things. And really, it's not that hard. If we just stick with really that focus on those nourishing foods and finding those nourishing foods, your body will know how to absorb that. Okay. Any questions on that, guys? Anything you want to share on that? Any experiences, any concerns, any thoughts at all? Would love to hear from you. Okay. Right. And this is my final principle of our diet, and particularly around the Indo Diet. So there's a lot of information about the Indo Diet. And when I first stumbled on the Indo Diet, I remember just feeling such a sense of overwhelm. Like it was just, what? I can't eat all these things. Like I was just horrified. And I remember just looking at it and going, well, that's not going to happen. I didn't even consider it. Like I remember first reading about it and just being just so shocked that there was somebody who would suggest cutting out dairy and sugar and gluten and meat and like just all these things. And that's all I remember seeing. Then I've also worked with women who go on a FODMAPs diet. So FODMAPs is even more restrictive. And yes, there are studies that show it can be beneficial for women with endo. But here's the clincher. The reason it's beneficial is because there's digestive issues going on. And if you have a FODMAPs diet, that can alleviate some of those digestive issues. So there's something particular that a lot of women struggle with. It's called SIBO, which stands for small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. What that means is that there is essentially bacteria in the small intestine which shouldn't be there. And when you go on a FODMAPs diet, you're lowering those things that feed those bacteria. And so a lot of those symptoms go down. So particularly things like gas and bloating and a lot of pain in it's actually pain from the gas buildup in the digestive column. So, in the bowels themselves. So then women go, okay, I feel better on this FODMAPs diet. So then they just continue eating like that. And for years and years and years. That diet is far too restrictive to maintain a healthy nutrient level in your body. There's just not enough in there. There's things that your body needs from other food sources. And often when you actually look at the nutritional profile within these women who eat like that, they're just not getting enough. And so you can't be well. It's back to my windmill example. You can't be well if you don't have everything your body needs. So avoidance becomes such a thing. And I do think there is an emotional thing to that. When you are avoiding, there's a feeling of control. And I think when you have a condition like endo, and for a lot of women with endo, there is some history of trauma, whether that trauma is major, like, sexual trauma, something like that, or whether it's trauma just from your upbringing, experiences you've had in your life. But if there's been trauma in your life and sort of stresses in your life, in that moment, you probably didn't feel any kind of control about what was happening. And you felt very much alone in that situation. and you wished you had some ammo, some kind of backup, some kind of sense that you could control the situation. And so then you have a condition like endometriosis, which, granted, in itself is its own trauma. Let's be honest. I mean, you get diagnosed with a condition, they tell you repeatedly cannot be cured. You're permanently in pain. You get ignored. People dismiss you. You're told over and over again that there's nothing that can be done, or your pain is not valid. I mean, that isn't a trauma in itself. When you think about it, you're completely ignored and you're not validated as a person. And then compound that with possibly traumas from your childhood where you may have felt the same. It's just all these things. So there is a lack of control in your life. There's a lack of feeling that you can control your life. And so we shift to this idea that, well, I can control my eating. I can control my diet. I can control what I put in my mouth. And I totally went down this path. And, I can share so much about my life in terms of my own traumas and how this led to this. But there's a real danger here, as I'm sure some of you recognize. There's a real danger of developing eating disorders with us, because there is this need to control what we eat, and believing that by controlling what we eat, we're controlling some aspect of our life. And it gives us that sense that we can control aspects of our life. And I did this for many, many years. And here's the question. If you're controlling what you eat, is it the control that makes you feel better, or is it the diet that makes you feel better? Is it eating all this restrictiveness and sticking to it because you're feeling like you're making a sacrifice? Is that what's making you feel better? So the mindset around that way of eating, or is it truly the actual diet that's making you feel better? I know it's a big question, because I know for myself, I would literally eat something with gluten in it and I would get pain instantly. There's no way the body could process that so quickly and I would get pain instantly. So was it that the gluten really was causing me that much pain, or was it because I had a belief around the fact that gluten was therefore bad, and therefore I was losing control over the situation, and therefore I had the pain? It's a big question. Love to hear your thoughts if anyone wants to share, because there is so much mindset around this stuff. And I know that the feeling of control is something that we cling to so desperately, particularly when you have a condition like Endo. There's so much of a desire to feel control over this condition, because it's so random. Like, you might have pain just suddenly popping out of nowhere. You don't know why it's suddenly come out of nowhere. And so we have this lack of control, this lack of, well, how do I carry on with this? How do I live through this day when I don't even know when this pain's going to just randomly pop up? So that can feel really scary. And like, you don't have control over your life. You don't even know when you can plan things, because you don't know what's going to happen. Oh, thanks, Lisa. So let me see if I can put Lisa's comment on here. Yay! I can. Okay. So Lisa shared, she never thought of it this way. She feels the same way about red meat and dairy. Yeah. So red meat and dairy is an interesting one. Now, what I found is it's all about moderation, and really recognizing, once again, coming back to our principles, how do you feel when you eat it? So I do eat red meat. I don't eat a lot of red meat. I have it in small amounts. I might only have 1 or 2 portions a week, and that works for me. Now, I've had women who go full on paleo and they're having meat a lot, and they do feel better. But here's the thing, okay, you're also on a journey. And if there is nutrient deficiency, so let's say you haven't been eating meat, and then, your body might be needing some of the nutrients in that red meat. And if you're going back to principle number 3, and actually, let's just see if I can go back. If you're going back to principle number 3 and you're listening to your body, you will recognize how you feel when you eat something and whether your body actually needs that something. So you may go through a period where you need that. You may be lacking in B12. You may be lacking in tryptophan. You may be lacking in some of those key nutrients that you get from meat, particularly around protein building, which is sort of this irony. So you need proteins, which build enzymes. Enzymes is what makes a lot of actions happen in the body. If you don't have enzymes, you can't break down food. It's kind of this very weird loop, but that's where it can be really dangerous to not have enough proteins in your body. So not to say that you have to get proteins from only animal products. You certainly can get a lot of protein from non-animal products, but there's other things that you can not easily get from non-animal products. And I want you guys to really be mindful of this. I'm so conscious. I don't want to offend anyone because I know how much this can really irritate people when it's like, well, I'm vegan, I'm vegetarian or whatever, and I'm trying to not eat these certain foods. But really think back to principle 1. Is it truly nourishing your body? Are you getting everything that you need? And being mindful of that, because I just want you to be well. That's all I really want. And if I see that there's nutrient deficiencies within a diet, I have to tell you that, as much as we think that we're doing the right thing. Dairy is an interesting one, Lisa, because for me, I actually found dairy to be a huge trigger. And I do think that one is a little bit more, there's a little bit more insight around that, in particular if you don't have that enzyme. So coming back to the enzymes, if you don't have the ability to break down the casein, which is the protein found in dairy, or the lactose, if you don't have those enzymes, then you are going to struggle with dairy. And there's a lot of debate around that because some people say, well, maybe that's why we fermented dairy in the first place. That's why there is things like cheese and yogurt, because we don't actually have the means to break it down. Maybe there is things like butter and all these things to help the body break that down better. Why is all other animals don't have dairy till they have it till they're weaned, and then they don't have dairy anymore. So there is a lot of debate around that. There's also a difference between A1 and A2 dairy, and different women feel differently on different milks. I personally, from my experience, have found the dairy to be a real trigger for me. I can eat butter, doesn't seem to be a problem, but I can't seem to have any other dairy. It's fairly consistent, so it's not necessarily a mind connection there. So yeah, it is an interesting one. All right, so for those of you who maybe missed the beginning of this whole presentation, questions that to ask: is it nourishing? Are you conscious when you're eating? Are you listening to your body and how you feel? Can you shift your focus in terms of what you're eating? And then ultimately just stop avoiding so many things, Those are the key principles of diet and what I look for when I'm looking at diet. If you guys have questions around this, if you want more insights, if you want more tools, if you're stuck with what to eat, please let me know. Feel free to reach out to me at support@endoempower.com. I really want to help you guys. I really want to show you how you can use food to support your body and how food can truly be a massive platform in terms of healing, in terms of providing for the body. When your body has everything it needs, when you've created an environment where it's saturated with all the nourishment, it's got all the tools that it needs to operate fully. If you don't have what you need, you're just never going to feel well. And so I want to make sure that you're providing for your body on that deeper level. So, yeah. So thank you, everyone, for being here. If there's any other questions, feel free. I'll stay on for a little while and you guys can share any questions you might have. No other questions? All right. Well, thank you so much, and look forward to supporting you further. Bye. Thanks, Lisa.